I'm here talking with National Firearms Authority Massad Ayoob. There's been a lot of talk nationwide lately about the need for a national concealed carry permit, and Ayoob is one of the leading proponents of this. Mass, could you tell me a little bit about this?
Well, I think it's an idea whose time has come. America, more than ever, is a mobile society. We have people who may have residences in multiple states, may visit family in other states, who have to travel interstate for their work, for their recreation. The gun law situation in America has historically been a crazy quilt of balkanized law. You have, for example, in my state, New Hampshire, it's no trick at all for a resident or a non-resident to get a license to carry a concealed weapon for personal protection. It will, however, be limited to handguns. If you have a loaded rifle or shotgun in the car, you're in violation of the game laws. You may contrast that to Texas or Kentucky, where there is no provision to get a permit to carry a concealed pistol, as mass murder victims found out from Kentucky to Texas to their chagrin. Yet it's legal to have a fully loaded rifle or shotgun in the vehicle so long as it's exposed. You have 6 or 8 states where there is a possibility to get a non-resident concealed carry permit, some more easily than others. The situation ranges from Vermont, where a citizen is not required to get a permit to carry a concealed weapon. It's understood in law that it's their privilege to do so automatically. They're merely forbidden to do so with malicious intent or if they have a felony background. We have probably on the order of 19 or 20 states where there is no provision at all for anyone but a police officer or a security guard to get a permit to carry a concealed weapon. We have many more jurisdictions ranging from Southern California to, let's say, New York City to the Detroit, Wayne County area in Michigan, where the law is on the books that allows you to get the permit, but de facto arbitrary enforcement at a bureaucratic level has prevented the citizens from gaining this right. The passage of a national CCW, a national permit to carry a concealed weapon, would literally free the citizens in those many states who are not allowed to share the privilege of the others. It would allow those who do travel for business, pleasure, or family emergency to be armed if they so chose, felt it so necessary, and could live up to the responsibility that accompanied the power.
So what you're basically advocating is the issuance of a permit that would allow you to carry a concealed weapon anywhere in America?
That's correct. Reciprocity would not work for 2 very good reasons. First, if we said, let's ask New York to be reciprocal with Florida or Virginia, we have now the situation of anti-gun bureaucrats in New York who want still more draconian gun confiscation. When confronted with the fact that their confiscatory draconian laws haven't worked in the past, they're saying it's not our fault, we had the right laws, but those lax laws in Virginia and Florida allowed the guns to come in. You'll run into the same mentality and the same obstacles to recognizing the out-of-state permits. Consider the mentality of New York City officials who will not even recognize a permit from elsewhere in New York State.
Okay. When you talk about reciprocity, I guess there are some people who say rather than having a national concealed carry permit, let's just keep our state permits, only they would be recognized elsewhere in America.
Yeah, and the second reason I disagree with that is that leaves out in the cold our brothers and sisters in those many states where they cannot get a local permit and therefore would have nothing to gain reciprocity with. I think what we would need would be a national licensing system analogous to the way pilots licensing or interstate commercial trucking licenses are given today. The test can be taken at any state under state auspices, but is done to federal standards. Once issued, remains in force. Once issued, fulfills a national standard and is recognized by the other 49 states.
I think the danger there would be to set things up so that it was set very clearly what the standards would be to get a permit, so that people in Southern California or New York City or whatever couldn't jack the standards up to the point where it would basically be where it is now. Only the few would be allowed to have a permit.
I've heard that argument, and the people who say this is one reason not to have national CCW because it could open the door for that, and the next thing we know we'll have unrealistic standards and can't even carry in our state, are missing a point. First, the day is coming when in virtually every issuing jurisdiction, to get a permit to carry, you will have to pass some sort of a written test, understanding what your rights are and what the laws are that govern your use of the weapon and your skills. We're seeing this now in various jurisdictions. The reform laws typified by the model law in Florida, which has since been followed by Idaho, which the activists are trying to get passed in Texas and Missouri, was able to pass the state legislature in each case only because it provided a minimum standard of training. The legislators would accept trained, certified, responsible people carrying guns. I would never have voted into law anything that indiscriminately allowed anyone to simply carry a pistol in public. Now, the issuing authority today, depending where you go, in Michigan it will be a district attorney, in Virginia will be a judge, and in most other communities will be the county sheriff's office or the chief of police's office in a municipality. Why do so many of these chiefs and sheriffs become reluctant to issue the permits? Because they're aware there is a severe civil liability implication here. For the same reason those sheriffs and chiefs require their men to take an additional 10 or 20 hours in service deadly force training every year, qualify to a minimum standard, a minimum number of times, is that they realize they sent those men out in the street with loaded guns. And if something goes wrong, they're in the chain of vicarious liability. Chief, you set him loose out there with a gun, you shot the wrong person, we're suing you. They are slowly figuring out that when they signed the gun permit for you as a private citizen, they have done exactly the same thing and are in the chain of liability. So the qualifications are going to come anyway, Dwayne. But the history of this, the history of any conflict, is that the winner of the battle gets to write the terms of the treaty, not the guy who fought, and was finally overwhelmed. All he gets to do is swallow whatever's shoved down his throat. And this has been, in the past 20 years, the history of the gun rights movement in the United States. If we take the initiative on this, we are the ones who get to write a reasonable standard. A standard of competency testing should be simple enough to allow an 80-year-old arthritic grandmother who can see her target to pass the test. I don't care if she can speed reload. I want to know, does she know how to safely load and unload the pistol? Does she know how to safely store the pistol and keep it out of unauthorized hands? Is she competent to manipulate the weapon so that a shot fired at a typical home defense distance, say across a bedroom, would strike a target and not another innocent victim? This can be done simply, smoothly, and efficiently. An additional bonus for this is because none of the police departments are set up to do it. The logical thing would be to do what we're doing right now with the hunter safety programs. The stuff is farmed out to area gun clubs, area rod and gun associations, etc. This brings in now a flood of new blood and new membership to these strong organizations that in many cases are losing their membership as the encroachment of an urban society upon a rural one brings in fewer people who have the family dispositioning to become enthusiasts. It brings more money into these clubs. It gives them more power to do other forms of safety training. For those in economically disadvantaged areas like the inner city, it would be no trick at all to train people as NRA instructors in home, voluntary firearms responsibility, etc. And through community watch, guardian angels if you wanted, whatever local group, make this available affordably or for free for our lower income citizens in the inner city high crime areas who most need this privilege and who traditionally have been most discriminated against by the white male power elite.
So you're talking about these requirements not to own a handgun, but to get the National Concealed Carry Permit to carry a gun concealed on the street.
Emphatically, I believe it's a right of any law-abiding citizen to own a gun. When it starts to become a privilege, historically in the society, has been when you seek to carry the loaded gun in public, walking among the rest of the citizens. There is an implication there that however remotely you believe the day may come when you need to fire that gun in public in the presence of those other citizens. And historically, society is imposed with the power to carry that gun, the responsibility to make certain that you can do so coolly, calmly, safely, and accurately reducing the jeopardy to the citizenry in general instead of adding to the general jeopardy. We're talking here a national license to carry concealed. It would probably require a good 30-day waiting period to allow for a proper criminal record character background check. What it should do then and thereafter, first, it should be good for life without requirement for the bureaucratic burden of annual renewal. Revocable upon conviction of a felony or proof of adjudication of mental incompetence, etc. The license to carry should require, as we discussed earlier, a minimum standard of qualification. There should be a reasonable price to pay for the background run. The state of Florida charges $160 for theirs. That should more than cover it. The benefits, I think, would be manifold. I think we're seeing with, if we are successful in the passage of H.R. 4897, I believe, you'll want to double check that. The Police Protection Act that would authorize career and retired career police officers to carry off duty anywhere in the country. We see a corollary there in a couple of ways. First, it shows that the law enforcement community itself recognizes there is a great advantage to law enforcement and public safety to have multiple armed, trained people out there who might be present at a violent felony scene and capable of interdicting it and protecting the innocent. There would be no other justification to authorize the arming of that many people who had no jurisdiction, no power to arrest. Second, if and when such legislation passes, you would have the needed precedent for national concealed carry for the responsible citizen who can show proof of training. The very fact that these officers either no longer have power of arrest or have power of arrest elsewhere indicates society's recognition that you don't need arrest power where you are to prevent violent crime to the innocent. What you need is a gun and the knowledge of how and when to use it. Once that precedent exists and the passage of the National Police Protection Act that would authorize nationwide off-duty carry by police, you have the necessary precedent.
Personally, I don't think that I would have a problem having to go in and prove my competency to carry a concealed firearm. I think that would also tend to get rid of the argument that anti-gunners have that only bozos want to carry guns. If you can go in and prove that you're competent.
We have seen that as the history of the Great Florida Experiment. In the beginning, when Marion Hammer's law was proposed, the Handgun Control Incorporated types were saying, my God, there'll be a shootout at every backed-up line at every gas station in the state, da-da-da-da. It has not happened. There have been multiple cases now where the concealed carry permit did what it was supposed to do. It saved the life of innocent people multiple times over by allowing a gun to be there when it wouldn't have been otherwise. There has been perhaps one instance of someone with a concealed carry permit doing something with it that they should not have. And the Handgun Control Incorporated types have simply shut up in the face of that overwhelming knowledge. We would see that now multiplied 50-fold by national concealed carry. And the reality of this would very quickly become apparent to the rank and file citizenry at large. The great silent majority on this polarized debate of gun control would now have a much better handle on who is telling the truth, who is facing the reality of gun presence and prevention of violent crime in the United States.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne. Good luck.
You're welcome.